The general trend in your lifetime has been countries moving towards allowing dual citizenship, letting you have more than one citizenship without having to give up the one where you're from. And yet one country now is bucking that trend. The opposition party here wants to end dual citizenship, and they've got a very specific reason. I'm going to tell you what it is. First, let me tell you what dual citizenship is. And it's a bit of a colloquial misnomer in that dual citizenship, the way people generally think about it, could mean multiple citizenship. And so you could have two citizenships, you could have three. Heck, for dual citizenship purposes, in most countries, you could have 100, right? What dual citizenship allowance is that your country, let's take where I'm from in the United States, they don't really mind if you have other passports. Okay, now you can commit an expatriating act. Maybe in some countries you're joining a foreign military, or you're taking a government job, or you're fighting against them in a war, and in that case you may forfeit your citizenship. But generally speaking, they're not going to be concerned if you have another citizenship, which means, if you're born in the United States but your parents are from somewhere else, you can generally keep both of those citizenships. You don't have to make a choice at some point. And so you could also have 2, 3, 4. We talk about citizenship by investment, citizenship by descent. I mean, you could build a passport portfolio of 4, 5, 6, as high as you want to go. And in most cases, countries that allow dual would allow that as well. Okay. And so the trend has been towards dual citizenship. We've seen it just the last couple of years. Places like Georgia, Norway, now Germany's talking about it, opening up and being more flexible. And so it's very odd these days, given that you've seen, in the last 25 years, even countries like Australia open up. I mean, it's just been an onward trend of letting people have more than one passport. It's very odd to see it going in the other direction. Latin America and Europe have generally been pretty open. Asia has generally been pretty closed. In this regard, there has been a little bit of movement. From East Asia to the Gulf has been closed. African countries have been closed, but we're seeing more and more of those open up. I just reported recently Liberia is opening up. But I'm going to tell you which country wants to change and buck the trend. If it's your first time here, I'm Andrew Henderson, founder of Nomad Capitalist. We're a boutique consulting firm that helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. We also help folks who have citizenship through their ancestry, your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, claim that citizenship by descent, go through the whole process. There's no income or net worth requirement just to do that. You can learn more about both services at nomadcapitalist.com. Here's the headline. Finland wants to stop the practice of dual citizenship. Now, this is not the government that's in power, but it is their largest parliamentary opposition party. The Finnish opposition party, True Finns, wants to scrap dual citizenship, and they propose to stop the practice, this according to political lore, of dual citizenship in the country, following an updated, basically a party platform. According to the Finnish Statistics Office, and this tells you why, at the end of 2021, there were about 150,000 dual citizens who also had Finnish citizenship. The largest group was Russians, 38,339. And so basically what this political party is saying, Finland is not going to go back to bilateral relations. You may have read in the paper a couple months ago, the last train from Russia to the European Union and back went from Russia into Finland. And so obviously with the war going on, Europe has cut all of its ties, basically, with Russia. Russians, even who have already been naturalized in European countries, are facing some troubles. Certain banks don't want their business. They're having troubles doing other things, day-to-day life. And so the question is, hey, can I not be a Russian citizen? I'm not sure that in some cases that's good enough. But they have been naturalized, they've been long-term residents and now citizens of Europe, and they're having some problems. And so this is something that I can't say I'm surprised to see, where you have these countries that are in Eastern Europe that border Russia. You're seeing, a lot of talk about this, and you've heard, for 10 years, since I've been going to the Baltics, you've been hearing this. Obviously, the people in the Baltics have concerns about Russia. And that's why you have some of the less flexible dual citizenship rules in parts of Eastern Europe, largely for this reason. So this is a little bit concerning, the sense of if you're one of the roughly 75% of dual citizens whose other citizenship isn't Russia, you may be at a disadvantage. So this is just a platform. If these guys get in charge, they're going to try and push this through to end dual citizenship. What does that mean? Well, potentially for children, it means at a certain age you get a choice. Hey, do I want to be Finnish or do I want to be this? And so you're going to have to make a choice. How does that work for adults? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But certainly they don't want to have people from Russia there, and they're willing to basically throw the entire concept of dual citizenship out. And so that should also give you pause, not just the fact that they're going to get rid of it potentially if this party gets into power, but the fact that if you're from a country that falls out of favor, and I don't know how many Western countries that really applies to. I mean, we can get conspiratorial. Do we really think the United States is going to be on the outs with the entire world? Probably not. Certainly not with countries that are in or trying to join NATO, or that have strategic alliances with the U.S. But certainly there could be spot issues with the U.S. I've mentioned before. The U.S. and Turkey had a spat a number of years back. Turkey said, "Hey, we don't Americans, don't come here. We're not going to issue you an e-visa." And so, could you have spats like that, where your passport becomes a disadvantage, or where your passport gives you problems for dual citizenship? I've made the case recently that there's a benefit to having a so-called no-name passport. Now, if you're fortunate enough to be from Liechtenstein or Andorra or something like that, those countries aren't really known for ticking people off, and most people around the world, believe it or not, couldn't find them on a map and probably even haven't heard of them. You could also get a no-name citizenship through one of the Caribbean citizenship by investment programs, just countries that are under the radar, minding their own business, small, not bothering anybody. That's not a bad thing to add to your portfolio, because will there come a time when a larger country that's more controversial gets you into some situation where you have to make a choice, or where you simply can't have the optionality that you have now? And it may not be around keeping your citizenship, and it may be around, hey, look at what the banks did in shutting a lot of Americans around the world. Plenty of banks that Americans can access, but the banks that you would typically think about for offshore banking, most banks in Switzerland don't want Americans, for example. Banks in wealth hubs like Singapore may take Americans, but not for the full suite of services. And so if you're an American, hey, you can keep your citizenship, but you're going to be at a disadvantage, right? And so there will be decisions to be made in the coming years based on where your citizenship is. And that's why I think having a diversified portfolio of at least two, and I think really these days 3 makes a lot more sense, will give you the optionality to adapt to this. If I'm a citizen of Finland and I've got a dual citizenship, and they're going to come in and try and take my citizenship, I think there's circumstances where that may not be the case, but if they don't want these people to be Russian, they're going to basically say, hey, you got to choose. I don't know entirely what that accomplishes. You could be pro-Russia and say, hey, of course I'll take the better passport, right? How will that resolve Russians? If you want to go back to Russia, it may be difficult, quite frankly. I hear that there's some challenges if you're a former Russian going back. And so that would be the question in this kind of situation is, which country do you want to risk having an issue not being able to go back to if it's 2 countries that are kind of at odds, or if it's at least, you need a visa to go from one to the other, as a Finnish citizen needs to go to Russia and a Russian citizen needs to go to Finland. So, these are the kinds of things that would happen. But I'm not going to say it's disturbing, but certainly I think it's a good thing that the world has been opening up for dual citizenship. The world is open now. People have parents from different places. A country that's a very liberal country like Finland should understand people are getting together from all different parts of the world, and they want to pass down their citizenship. And you see people in Europe who will point the finger at other countries in the Middle East or Asia and say, how come the mom can't pass on her citizenship to the kids? How come only the dad can? Or how come it's only the mom under certain conditions? And you're going to have situations in a country that ends dual citizenship where 2 parents from different countries get together, or someone who has citizenship by descent, and they can't pass both of those down. They can't pass their true identity, right? What if you're Finnish and you move to the United States and have a child? Now your child's an American citizen, but they're going to have to make a choice, at least at some point, perhaps, if this were to go through. Which one do I want to be? Do I want to be my ethnicity, or do I want to be where I was born? Now, in that case, a little bit easier, right? Europeans can travel to the United States and vice versa. But this is, in an increasingly connected world, the case for dual citizenship. And I wouldn't want to be a citizen of any country that locks me in. And so I also want to be protected in case my country falls out of favor. But my response to this would be, when a country says no dual, I imagine it's like some version of like your husband coming home and saying like, hey, listen, I want to have something on the side. And you're like, no, your reaction is to go the opposite direction. If someone says no dual, I'm going to be like, that's why I need dual. We had folks who didn't want to come to Nomad Capitalist Live. We sold it out and we ended up reselling some of the tickets. But people didn't want to come to Nomad Capitalist Live last year because they were concerned about COVID restrictions going back to their country. And my thought was, that's why you need to come and figure out where else you can go, where you have a place where you don't have to go home and do whatever for 14 days. That's why you need it. And so in the same situation, if my country's saying, hey, we're going to get rid of dual citizenship, all the more reason why I would want to have dual citizenship. The good news, if you're a European citizen, is if you ever lost the European citizenship, there are numerous different ways you can get back in once you're not European. You could get some kind of citizenship in the Caribbean. You could get probably wouldn't really improve things to be a citizen of Turkey, but you could get a citizenship in the Caribbean, which would give you the access to visit Europe for 90 days at a time, like the rest of us. And then if there ever came an issue where you have to choose, you could decide which one do I want. And you could decide to keep the Caribbean citizenship, or maybe you're entitled to some other European citizenship by descent that allows you to keep both. You could make a choice at some point to keep the non-European one, and then get a European golden visa, get a European self-sufficient visa, or even go through Malta's citizenship program and get citizenship back in 18 months. Now you're a citizen of an EU country again. If you wanted to move to Finland, you could, just not as a citizen. So there's ways you can do that in Europe, and we've had a number of Europeans who are concerned, from the Netherlands, for example, from Germany, where dual citizenship has been restricted, about, hey, what if my country comes out with crazy new taxes, crazy new restrictions? What am I going to do? What's my plan? Should I keep my citizenship? When someone tells me I can't do something, that's going to make me wonder why and want to look at ways to protect myself. And so there aren't too many of you watching out there whose countries are talking about scrapping dual citizenship. But if you are, I would want to be prepared. And even if you're not, I would want to make sure I have backup options so that my country doesn't control me, because this makes it pretty clear. Your identity, your citizenship, your passport, your ability to travel, your ability to live, your ability to earn money, your ability to get health care is dictated based on a little passport and the concept of citizenship that is entirely controlled by one government. Do you want all those things controlled by one government, or do you want options? I'm going to vote for options.